Hey everyone, it's Friday, so it's time to talk about the things that I have been reading in the last week. And you'll see that I have not finished much. I mean, I finished some things, but they've all been really short. And then I'm in the middle of a few things, but I just haven't done a ton of reading this week. And mostly that is because I just have not been in the mood. There has been a lot of stuff going on in the world that has made me upset, anxious, worried about the future. And so when I get like that, I go to some of my comfort things, which this week has been musicals. So my husband and I watched Encanto at like the very beginning of the month and loved it. We had never seen it before because we just got Disney Plus. And so then we watched it again like 2 days later with our kids, and we've just been listening to the music kind of constantly this week. Well, that led off to me wanting to just watch more musicals. So we watched Hamilton, you know, inspired by Lin-Manuel Miranda with Encanto. And then we also watched The Greatest Showman. And then we're probably going to watch some more musicals this weekend. Yeah, so just, it's my happy place to watch musicals. It's what I need right now in my life, is people singing and dancing, and it makes me happy. All right, well, I have finished a few things. So first, I did finish some manga for my video I've been working on. And I think I said 2 weeks ago that this video where I was trying first volumes in series was going to go up like right after that video 2 weeks ago. And then I just like hit a point where I wasn't reading much. And so I finally read all 4 of the rest of them for that video this week. And I'm not gonna go into detail about these because that video is already edited and will be going up this weekend. So these are 4 that I read so far this week, and there's 4 more that I read in June. So those are, if you wanna know what I'm reading for that video, I have Assassination Classroom, Fruits Basket, Erased, and 20th Century Boys. And then there's 4 other ones. Those are the ones I just finished this week, but that will be up this weekend, definitely. All right, and then I kind of have a few things in the Jane Austen category because it is Jane Austen July. And I've been kind of slacking until like just 2 days ago. I was like, I should start reading my Jane Austen stuff. So I picked up some of the picture books that I had gotten, and I'm really glad that I ended up doing this. As one of the prompts is to like read nonfiction based on Jane Austen or her time period. And I picked up several picture books, and I'm glad I did it for 2 reasons. One, obviously I'm just not in the space to be reading a giant nonfiction book right now, like a huge biography. And so these little short things are great. And I just think these are really high quality. I just got interrupted because my husband had to come and make a smoothie. And so I had to stop recording during that, obviously. So I lost my train of thought. But I think I was saying I was glad that I read these picture books. And so the first one I picked up was Jane Austen, an illustrated biography. This is from the Library of Luminaries. And this is the one that I thought, based on just flipping through it, that I might not like as well because it seems very abbreviated and very like small illustrations and things, but I ended up really liking this. I didn't love the illustrations. Like, they're very simplistic. There are some full page ones, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. They're pretty. They just weren't really calling to me in terms of the illustrations, but I did like the biographical information. This definitely just lays out like a timeline of Jane Austen's life, like where she was living when, her family, and then also like when each of her books were either written or published, because, you know, some of them were written much earlier than they were published, and kind of the failed attempts at publishing during different times. So it does lay out quite a lot of things. And the end was really impactful about like her illness and to her death. And so this actually turned out to be better than I was expecting. Like, I thought it was going to be just very minimal information, and it was, but it was enough that I'm like, okay, now I have an overall timeline of her life and can fill it in with more biographical information from other sources. So still a good one, especially if you were gonna read it with kids and just wanted to kind of give an overview of her life. And then I read A Most Clever Girl, and this one was just beautiful. I really enjoyed this one. This is less biographical and more, like, it does have some stuff, but more, this is like, the purpose is to show how she became an author and kind of like her character traits, like talking about her family liking to do plays and like some of her family members liking to do poetry and things. And I'm showing you some of the artwork because I think it's just really nice artwork. So it's more like kind of talking about the supportiveness of her family and how those circumstances led to her being able to write. And yeah, so it wasn't necessarily biographical and like an overview of her life, but more about like what brought her to writing and what inspired her to write. And I thought it was really beautiful. So if you want a really beautifully illustrated book that like kind of more talks about her inspirations, I think I would highly recommend this. I really liked it. And then I have started an adult book, like an actual big book this month. This is because all the other things I'm talking about are things that I had already been reading when I started the month. This is the only thing that I have started so far this month. And when I say started, I'm like less than 20 pages. So yeah, I'm not doing great at starting my TBR this month. This is a fantasy version, a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. And so since I'm at the very beginning, I can't really give many impressions, but all I have to say is that Darcy is a dragon rider. And that's all you have to say, right? But so far, I don't have any clue whether this is a good retelling or anything, or if the characters are good in their own right, because I'm just still at the very beginning. All we have seen is like being introduced to Eliza is her name, and here it's A-L-I-Z-A, so Eliza. And then she and Darcy, who's not named Darcy, I can't remember what his name is, meet for the first time, and that's it. That's all I've seen so far. And the fact that there are dragons and griffins. Like, so they've hired these dragon riders in order to get rid of the griffins which are like killing people in their village. Okay, and then the only other things that I have been reading are continuing things that I've started previously. So I had started The Song of Achilles in June, and I had gone halfway through, and now I'm like almost to the end. I only have like 30 pages left because there's some notes in this one. So a couple more chapters. And the reason I didn't really finish this one in June is that I got to the point, I liked the first half a lot, and then I got to the point where they were going to the Trojan War, and I just don't care about war and battle scenes, so I kind of just put it down because I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna like the second half. But then, you know, like the last couple days, I was like, I need to finish this book. I really need to read it. Everybody seems to love it. And so I picked it up, and I actually really am enjoying it. And I'm surprised because there is like battle scenes and war scenes, but I think because we're viewing this from the viewpoint of Patroclus, who in this, not necessarily based on the legend, but in this one, he is a very like calm and compassionate person. So it's like we're viewing war from somebody who doesn't want there to be a war and who is very compassionate of people dying on both sides, and for the soldiers and their struggles, and, you know, seeing the hypocrisy or hubris in the leaders that are causing these deaths. So I think viewing it from that point of view has helped me to get through the war scenes, and I've been enjoying it. And like I said, I'm almost at the end. Some big stuff has happened. And I wouldn't say that this is hitting me as emotionally as it would if it wasn't like a war-based story, but I am liking it a lot more than I do most war books. And then I have two giant classics that I've been working on. So one is the one I've talked about before that I have been reading through Les Mis throughout the whole year. We are around the halfway point. If you read the book and you know the sections, we are in the Marius section, which is that section 3. Yeah, so I'm about halfway through the Marius section. So I'm just getting introduced to Marius as a character, and kind of like that's just the beginning of him being introduced and the people like kind of around him in his life. And yeah, I am enjoying this, and I am glad that I am reading it, but I have to say that sometimes it's a chore. Like there are sections, like my best friend and I talk about this all the time. We're reading this together as a buddy read over the year, and there are times, this is too heavy to hold. There are times when we are like completely absorbed in the story and the characters and are really like turning the pages and really invested. And then we'll hit this huge like 40-page section where we're like, can you please just stop talking about the Battle of Waterloo, or like whatever. There's lots of different digressions from the story. And I know that it's all, you know, setting the scene and it's all related to the symbolism in the story, but there are times when I'm like, I just cannot like read this anymore. So I'm glad that we're taking the whole year to read it, because then when I hit one of those sections, I can say, okay, I'm not going to read this for a few days and then pick it up right before we're about to talk about it. And it just like makes it more digestible chunks. So if you have ever wanted to read Les Mis and you feel like it's like too much for you, I would highly suggest splitting it up over a really long period of time and for listening to the audiobook, because there are times when I just can't like make myself sit down and read those sections. Then I go to the audiobook. So I go back and forth and it's really helpful. And the other one that I have been reading, the big one, is Counting Monte Cristo, which is a buddy read with a bunch of people on BookTube. And I'm so proud of myself because I'm finally past the point where I stopped this book before. So I had picked up this book last year as a buddy read with Kara from Wild Book Garden, and I made it halfway through and then I quit on her. She finished the book and I was like, I think I just tried to read it too quickly. I tried to read it in 1 month and that wasn't happening. So I got halfway through the month and was just completely burnt out. But now spending the whole summer on this, like kind of like 3 months reading it, has been helpful. And I am past, I think where I took out my other bookmark, but I am definitely past the point where I read last time. I'm over 50%. So I'm feeling good and I'm really enjoying it. I'm hitting that point where I want to keep reading. Like it is getting really interesting, his revenge plot and everything. You know, I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but I think everybody knows that Count of Monte Cristo is like the ultimate revenge story. And so we're just kind of in the very midst of his unraveling of his revenge and just seeing the little parts combined together and how intricate this revenge plot is very satisfying to read. I mean, not like I'm one that wants to go in like have an elaborate revenge against someone, or that I think that that's good, but I think it's very interesting to read and seeing how he has like devised this whole scheme of and put together all these pieces and parts is very interesting. So I'm having a good time reading that now, and I'm going to be taking, I made sure that I was up on where we're supposed to talk about at the next check-in, so I don't have to read it for a while, which is good because I'm going to be preparing for a vacation next week, and I just didn't want to have to be reading this one if I don't have time to sit down and read it. So that's all the things that I have been reading lately. Like I said, everything I've finished has either been manga or picture books, and I have like continued to read big classics or other things that I have started, but basically have not started anything so far this year. I feel like, or this month, I feel like this month might not be a prolific reading month, which is fine. Especially with me going on vacation later in the month, I don't want to give myself any stress that I have to read things. It's a hobby. I should never like stress myself out. So just letting you know, probably won't have a huge wrap up this month, but I am having a good time listening to and watching musicals. I am having a good time reading picture books and manga. So at least I am having an enjoyable time to try to distract myself with a lot of the things that are stressing me out right now in the world. So that's it for me. I hope you are having a lovely week and that you have an enjoyable weekend. I'll see you next time. Bye.